Well, good afternoon and welcome to this week's weekly update for February 7th, 2025. My name is Everett Vass and I'm joined here by Sherry McLeod, our managing broker here at Cape Breton Realty. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, we had a very busy week this week. We've sort of broken out of our normally scheduled programming to give sort of a live update on what's happening in the market these days. We've had increasingly a number of interested buyers that are coming from outside of Canada. In particular, our neighbors to the south, given the events and some of the things that are happening, people have shown a great deal of interest in investing in Canada. And so what we thought we'd do today, Sherry, and I know that you had written your editorial on the investment aspect of how Cape Breton is so much more affordable, and the exchange rates being so favorable. I know that you've got some great ideas, and so we wanted to share that with our audience in terms of, where do you see this market going? How is it that we're responding, in terms of the buyers that are coming from outside of the province, especially outside of Canada? And where do you think this market is headed? So I'll leave the word over to you and just sort of interject with some questions along the way. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't have a crystal ball, of course. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. However, we have seen these things happen before. I've been around too long, I guess, because I've seen our dollar at 65 cents before, and even lower, 62 and 63 cents and stuff, And with all the calls that we've gotten and the inquiries that we're getting and offers and things coming in the last week over the Canadian, it's all about the Canadian dollar being so low.
Right.
So I think history is repeating itself. So if we think back into the 80s, we've been selling vacant land to Europeans and Americans based on the currency, for a long, long time. And they're basically buying for an investment, When it comes time for them to sell again, it's a good place to put your money in a piece of land, right? Some people buy gold, some people buy land, some people buy shares and stocks, and But the stock market is very up and down. Gold even, seems like it's up and down quite a bit as well, right? But in the short term, in the long term, gold is always a good investment.
Of course.
So, but land is the same. Land is a good investment. And when our dollar is low and you put money in land, and then our dollar goes back up, not only is the value of the land going up, but the value of our dollar going back up. It makes like ching,
All boats are rising with the tide, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our tax is not very favorable right now.
No.
Because of the tax that they put in, the new capital gain tax that they put in, but all parties are now saying that they're going to get rid of that.
Right.
So, the stars are lining up. Invest in waterfront properties, right? Our waterfront properties are some of the cheapest that you'll find in North America, for sure. And there's still a fair amount of it available, right? So, and it's a beautiful area. I mean, if you want to come here and, you want to build a cottage or something, that's fine too, right? You want to buy a cottage and not just vacant land. But the big thing with vacant land is it doesn't cost much to hold it. You pay your taxes every year, depending upon where you're buying. Our taxes are not that high. Richmond County is one of the lowest taxed counties in Nova Scotia, right? And vacant land that's taxed resource or something, it's so cheap to hold it, right?
1.05%, on average.
It's really cheap.
Of the assessed value.
Of the assessed value, right? Which is lower than the actual value.
Of the market value,
Yeah.
It's important to note as well that there have been in other areas restrictions, for foreigners to buy land, And when we're talking about these kinds of waterfront properties, and we're certainly talking about Richmond County, there's no restrictions on
and
that.
Inverness County and you know, Viceboro County, you know, but in Cape Breton in particular, Richmond and Inverness counties around the Bredor Lakes and the ocean, and you know, those are, you know, properties that are not going down in value, right?
Yeah.
When I started to sell real estate, I had a friend that bought a piece of land for $7,000 on the Bredor Lakes. It was 7 acres of land with beautiful view out in Roberta. Okay? And a few years later, he sold it. Well, he sold it for $30,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so he thought he did really well, and he did. But it was only a few years after that when the next guy sold it for 90. You know, we actually live on part of that property, not all of it, part of that property.
Is that right?
Right. And he's like, geez, I should have sold it to you for $30,000. I'm like, yes, you should have, right? I should have bought it, but I didn't have $30,000, and you know,
at the time,
at the time, that was way back, you know, in the 90s. It was $30,000 was a lot more money than it is today.
Right.
But you know, the property values have never gone down historically in our area, for sure. Nova Scotia, you know. So it's really a good, sound, solid investment. So if you have money and you put it in the stock market, you can't say the same. You can lose money there. Yeah. And history does repeat itself. But here's the other big benefit of buying, though, when the dollar is low, right? Our dollar right now. What did I pay for $1,000? Did I say?
Like 1,400 and change, yeah.
Yeah, $1,497 it was, right? I have it here, yeah. And it's $1,497 Canadian to buy $1,000 US.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty favorable exchange rate. You know, they can buy a lot for their money. You know,
definitely.
60-some cents to the dollar, basically, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
How could you go wrong? I had a lady call me today to make an offer, and she was talking in US dollars, and I'm saying, you know, but that's Canadian. And she's like, yeah, well, it's kind of the same. No, it's not. And so I converted it for her, and she went, oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to buy that. You know, that was...
Yeah, I had a similar experience today with an American caller asking about a property, and it was listed at $899. And I, you know, quickly did the calculation. I said, oh, but that's only $600, you know, for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to be, you know, it's not the same. Yeah, it's really quite dramatic. Yeah.
It is, and when they hear that, they think, gosh, you can't buy that anywhere here, right? And they can't. And I mean, in Europe, they're buying land by the square meter. You know, they're paying as much for a square meter as we're paying for, you know, an acre or more, right? So there's just no comparison, right? So I think, anyway, years ago, and then in the 90s, when we had the 65-cent dollar before, early 2000s, I guess it was, right? Yeah. We had a summer of Americans buying land left, right, center, right? And when they sold later, our dollar was up in the 90-some odd cents. A lot of them came back and you know, they didn't use it. So they decided, you know, it was a good idea at the time, but, you know, we're not using it. You know, I'm getting my tax bill and I'm thinking, why am I holding that? So I'm going to sell it. And when we sold it, if they bought a piece of land then for $50,000 or $100,000, and they sold it, you know, several years later, they made money on it.
So
of course.
there is an appreciation there, yeah.
So let's just say they made $50,000. Okay. So they paid tax on that $50,000, which the tax they paid is recognized in the U.S. And they would pay, I guess, on that $50,000, they had to pay tax on 25 of it. So they might have paid, you know, $3,000 or $4,000 because they have no other income in Canada, right? So but their real estate fees and stuff were all tax deductible, so that all came off of it, right? So they really paid very little tax. But here's the real big piece of the puzzle that's great, because they bought at 65 cents, and then so it really didn't cost them $50,000. It might cost them $30,000, right? But when they sold, they got, you know, if it was $50,000 more,
Yeah,
100,
the full
right?
value,
They got the full value back, right? Or, you know, when you converted that 100 to US, that was more like 90 cents, right?
Right.
So, so they were buying for 30 and sold for 90. You know what I mean? It's you know quite a difference in the dollar, right?
Yeah.
So.
The other question that came up today, and I was wanting to pick your brains over this, so now we have the opportunity, is of course, you know, if you are a foreign national coming to Canada, you can only legally stay here 6 months, you know, unless you get some kind of immigration, you know, arrangement, something
or
like that.
Or an extension for a visitor's visa or something, right?
Yeah. So those are the things that we, you know, that many times come up in questions, you know, from buyers saying, you know, how long can I stay? What are the conditions? You know, what is the path, you know, to becoming a full-time, you know, permanent resident, you know, basically. Yeah. So we get calls like that as well.
Constantly, right? And it depends on, you know, all kinds of things. The immigration website, the Canadian immigration website, has a scale on there that you can add up so many points, and if you have so many points, then it, you know, looks like you'll probably be successful. But there was, you know, in the last few years, if you wanted to be a student here, then it's very easy. Once you've worked here, we get a work permit if you can get a job here, and a work permit, and the company that hires you sponsors you and makes sure that you have accommodations and all those things. After so long, your work permit runs out, you get a new work permit, and it continues. You can apply for landed immigrant status after 2 years, I believe it is.
Yeah. So there are a number of pathways, but I mean, particularly people who are looking at retirement, you know, the sort of that age, there's various ways in terms of investment as well as buying businesses, running businesses, that kind of thing that could also be attractive, you know, as an investment.
A lot of people went the road of buying cottages or Airbnbs, or, you know, not necessarily Airbnbs, but B&Bs, bed and breakfasts, I guess, right? And, you know, sometimes they'll buy a hotel with so many units. They don't necessarily work it themselves. They're just, they're hiring people, because I think that was part of the criteria, was to have
create
employment for a couple of people.
Definitely.
So, you know, they were, you know, investing their money in something that they could sell again. So if they thought years ago, we sold the Joyces to a German couple that bought it, and a few years later they sold it again after they had their citizenship. And in the meantime, they employed people, and all was good. They turned into great Canadian citizens, right? And they still live here, and they made a profit on it when they sold it, and they made a profit on it while they had it. And, you know, they were there, but they hired people to do the cleaning and the work around and stuff. So, you know, it's a win-win situation. And, you know, those are the kind of immigrants we'd really like to see. They're going to invest money here and employ people, and, you know, I mean, there's nothing better than that. Yes, we do need a lot of, you know, people for other jobs too, but, you know, a balance is good, right? So.
And the other question, because a lot of the people that are coming in also have to do with healthcare, you know, the doctors and nurses. So the other question that I often get is sort of like, what are the, you know, arrangements that, you know, foreigners can avail themselves of in terms of healthcare when they're living here, you know?
If they are just vacationing here, they have to have health insurance. Right? They should have. They don't have to have, but they should have health insurance if they're only vacationing here. But if they're working here and they have a work permit, then they will get a MSI card for Nova Scotia in our situation, right? So if they're a student, they get an MSI card, I believe. Isn't that the situation?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So once they're a resident here, they generally, if you're allowed to have residency, then you get your card for that.
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of good health, I should mention that in compliance with the dry February that we declared last time, we're having tea. We're having a spot of tea. Yes, it's tea time.
Yes, we turned into British people now.
Show me your Emily Post here. So we're enjoying tea this month.
Yes, and you're really showing your age when you talk about Emily Post.
I know. That was one of my favorite Three Stooges gags. It was just, show me, when they're drinking tea, show me your Emily Post. your pinky's up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's, but we digress.
Yes, yes. So, anyway, the Canadian dollar is definitely, I think, going to be a big boost for our vacant land sales.
Right, yeah.
So, years ago, Tom, your
Stepfather, yeah.
Tom Wilcox and Jim Marchand
And Russie.
Russ, yes.
Yeah.
They did quite a number of developments around here.
Yeah.
In not just here, but I know the ones that were here, of course, right? One in Loch Lomond, one in Torres Drive, McNabb's Cove.
McNabb's Cove, yeah.
And then, of course, they did the Cape George Estates, and I think they did...
The crowning glory, yes.
The crowning glory.
Cape George Estates, yes.
But a lot of what they sold was to foreigners.
Of course, yeah.
And a lot of those foreigners never came here, right?
Yeah.
Torres Drive at McNabb's Cove, those lots were all sold off many, many years ago, and there wasn't a house built in there until, long after, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So, and that's what it was all about. It was just that people were buying land like a commodity, you know?
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from that. I watched what Tom did and thought, if he can do that, then my clients can do the same thing, right? They can make money selling to these people for the same purpose, and we began marketing things that way, right? And we were quite successful with it.
Yes.
And since the last number of years, we kind of got away from that because we were so busy with COVID and the housing shortage and those things. And it's time for us to go back to those kind of things.
That kind of focus, yeah.
So, and I think people are a little insecure about our economy right now.
Right.
And so maybe, people will be sitting on the sidelines waiting, but the people that are brave enough to step in and buy while the dollar is the way it is are the ones that are going to, I think, be successful.
Yeah. Because
all political parties are talking about getting back to being, a more independent country and standing on our own 2 feet, not so dependent on the U.S. and, developing our minerals and resources and stuff. I think that our dollar will climb when that all starts to happen. And they're all saying they're going to get rid of this new capital gain thing that they didn't even really get into place, right? But I think that, at the end of the day, this is a good time to buy because of that, you know? So even if you have Canadian dollars, I mean, it's a good time to buy, don't get me wrong. But I really can't encourage people enough to make the profit on the difference in the currency, because you don't pay capital gain on that.
Right.
You only pay capital gain on the difference, in the Canadian dollar.
Canadian dollar
buy
between
and sell.
the buy and sell.
Yeah. So, that's free money. That's awesome.
So the message today is that you certainly with the exchange, you're getting more land for your money, And certainly in Cape Breton, you're getting more value as well, for the money, because relatively speaking, compared to other markets and other, geographies, certainly within Canada, this is the most, I think it's the most value for money that we're seeing, and that's what attracts people here. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, you can buy a piece of land in Vancouver on the water for how many million?
Yeah.
Or you can buy a piece of land in Cape Breton on the water for 100,000. You know,
there's no comparison.
It's
really
night and day, isn't it?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So the average person that's worked in Alberta or Ontario and stuff that's from Cape Breton, they're all looking to come back here. They can afford to retire here. They want to come back because all Cape Bretoners want to come back. Right?
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
And you know, it's not just Cape Bretoners anymore. It's people, all kinds of people from Ontario that have visited and, you know, been here for their honeymoon or been here on vacation and holidays and stuff and loved it and said, you know, well, I'm coming back. This is where I want to live when I retire, right? So it's an easy lifestyle. People are friendly and, you know, and it's beautiful countryside, beautiful waterfront. And
well, and the cost of living also is not to be ignored either, that it is, you know, although, you know, we complain about it, but it's still, you know, all relative in terms of where you're coming from, because it is a lot cheaper to live here.
Well, housing is a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Land is a lot cheaper. You know, you might pay more for a quart of milk than you do in Ontario
In
or
downtown,
something. But, you know,
I suppose,
but I actually don't know if that's a fact. But I just picked milk. It
hypothetically,
could be, you know, could be a loaf of bread, you know, whatever. But
or eggs.
Eggs, yes. Yes, but your neighbor probably has some for sale, so you can just go next door.
That's the good thing, yeah.
Or you can have your own. Because, you know, here we are. We can do that pretty easily, right?
Yeah,
so, So, anyway, I thought that was a good topic for us for today, you know?
Well, yeah, I think it is. You know, there's a lot to be said, and if you do have any further questions or would like some, you know, proof of some of the things that we're saying in terms of the availability and the affordability of properties, then please contact us. My email is Everett, Everett, at CapeBretonRealty.com, and Sherry's is SHERRY at CapeBretonRealty.com. So,
and maybe our website is CapeBretonRealty.com.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good material on there, and some, you know, some of the examples of the listings that we have available to offer. So, anything else?
I'm just checking to see what cup I have.
Yeah. But you're enjoying the tea. That's good.
Tea.
Yeah.
Everett made the tea. Let's write that up in the paper.
Well, I wish it was Fiddler's Choice, but you know, we're doing what we can do.
Oh, it won't be long before the month is
I'm
over.
sure. Yeah, we'll get back. You know,
So,
get back to our old ways.
Next week we'll be here and do this again. I think it'll probably be you and I, but the following week I won't be.
Well, we already have an idea of a special guest that we're going to invite for the following week. So
Good.
With a comical twist as well, because you know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So I will be in Vegas at a leading real estate companies of the world conference, and hopefully I come back with all kinds of new and wonderful ideas and referrals and things like that. Lots of connections.
So great. Well, next week we'll get back to our sort of regularly scheduled programming, but then you'll be off, so that'll be exciting. And in the meantime, as I say, if there's any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comments on the posting for this. And in the meantime, we'll wish you a good weekend. We're supposed to be getting some snow this weekend for Super Bowl.
We've been very lucky. We haven't had very much
Not
snow,
too much,
so.
yeah. Last night, I was driving home from Sydney last night in about, you know, this much snow, so it was pretty bad. But then it all melted, so it's great.
the driveway today, there was ice on it this morning when I came in, and
Yeah.
now you look and it's clear. It's all gone.
It's
The
all
sun
melted, yeah,
it all
yeah.
away. It
Anyway.
was beautiful here this afternoon.
It
for a
was.
while.
It was gorgeous,
Sunny
yeah,
and
yeah,
warm.
yeah.
Yep. So
Anyway, best wishes. Have a great weekend, everyone. And until next week, cheers.
cheers.
Slanche. Thank you.
Right. See us all next week.